It's interesting. Anyway, go ahead, Hugh.
Well, Stephen, I just want to know, maybe we can just find out a little bit about your spiritual awakening, which happened, I guess, in 96 or thereabouts. Do you want to sort of tell us the story of what happened?
Sure. I mean, I'll say the short version is that at the age of 22, I had what I thought at the time was a kind of a spontaneous awakening, only because I didn't really have a context for understanding what had happened. Implicitly, I knew what had happened, which was really a return to that transcendental level of consciousness that I talked about. And the experience itself really, it totally restructured my consciousness, and it was filled, there was all kinds of sort of sub-experiences or sub-spiritual experiences that went along with it. But within the span of 3 minutes, I sort of went from not understanding who I really was to a complete and permanent sort of understanding of who I really was and who we all are as pure consciousness, pure being, pure bliss, that transcendental level of consciousness, or the plane of existence that's the source of everything in creation. And that experience led to a sort of a 3-year period where I was sort of just existing kind of above the world. The position of my sense of self sort of was, kind of up there looking down. And at the same time, it was also an interesting period because a lot of synchronistic things happened, and I had made really good fortune to have all kinds of wonderful real life experiences of learning and understanding and developing all kinds of stuff. So.
Boy, that's... So if we read this book, is that going to happen to us?
I wish. I mean, that's the intention, obviously. It is the intention, but it's just, it's a map. It's a particular way of trying to express what this evolutionary journey is all about. There's a method in there that worked for me that I generally suggest to people. But, will it happen to me is whether or not you want it. I mean, we're led by our spiritual pursuits are led by our intentions. If we really, really, truly want enlightenment, then it will come. There's no saying when.
So just to be clear, when you said 22, when you had this awakening, were you going through a period of crisis, or were you going through a period of challenges in terms of, were you putting without knowing it, were you putting a call out to come to some awakening?
Well, I was looking for ultimate truth. I was asking those kinds of questions that teenagers ask that we're sort of referencing earlier. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here? What's this really all about? And those kinds of questions really sort of galvanized my search, which over time became much more focused on this idea that there must be some way of reconnecting with the source of whatever this physical reality we call. There must be something more, and there must be a way to connect with it, although I had no idea if it was even possible.
And the reason I ask is because I know there's a thinking that we need these tragedies, we need these crises to break open, to be open to seeing and remembering who we really are. And I feel we're moving into a time where that isn't as necessary, that there seems to be enough people that are saying this is available, that people don't have to be in those crises, that there is maybe the set point or platform has gone up, that people can open up to that.
I don't think there's any hard, fast rule for the way the soul unfolds and the way the spiritual journey itself unfolds, but definitely crises can precipitate a kind of a breakthrough, but it can also lead to a breakdown. I think if there is the possibility of reintegrating an understanding of the spiritual journey in a modern context, which means not getting rid of what the insights of modern psychology have helped us to understand, because that really leads to ego integration, which is someone that sort of knows who they are, understands their boundaries in life, and you know how to facilitate those boundaries and have normal reactions. You're not projecting your stuff onto other people and then getting into a blame game and creating drama in your life. All of that stuff is good if it's sorted out prior to sort of taking on this ambition of really evolving your consciousness further, but it doesn't necessarily happen that way.
So the global awakening, can you just share with us, do you see that naturally unfolding, or is it something that we have to sort of really focus intention on? Are we facilitating it, or do we have to create it?
Both. Yeah. definitely both. I think there's, I mean, I've experienced this in people who've come to some of my events and talks. There's a sort of a sense of, I don't want to say apathy, but it's like, it's going to happen. 2012 is locked down. We don't need to worry. We can just sit back, relax, and wait for the big breakthrough. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that what these ancient cultures like the Mayans and the Egyptians, what they were trying to point towards is the possibility of entering into a golden age. But I don't think anything's set in stone, and I think that we absolutely have to birth it ourselves through our conscious intention. And the more that conscious intention is shared and understood, at the same time, sort of understanding that there are potentially many different groups that are going to take on this endeavor, that it doesn't become a kind of a turf war, like we have the right way and you don't, but that has to come about through a shared intention.
What about the Illuminoids, the reptoids that are trying to lock us down, keep us under their thumb?
Yeah, what
Stephen,
about them?
Well, what do we do about that?
We build UFOs and equip them with lasers, and when they come, we destroy them.
That's great. I love that answer.
Well, you know what? It leads me to ask the question. I read a quote from a book the other day that from research done in different cultures, that there are some cultures that are only 3% engaged in life. In other words, people are quite asleep. Mm-hmm. And do you have practical steps, if you will, or even exercises of how to wake up, mm-hmm. of how to notice, to help people?
Definitely. Mm. I mean, one of the main methods that I suggest to people is to first cultivate that observing or witnessing aspect of consciousness, which is sort of it's really a deeper dimension of being that we might have moments or glimpses of. And it's a matter of first cultivating that, and then sort of using that as what I call the gateless gateway, or the window to the absolute. Mm. And the way to do that is to just continuously bring your attention back to this witnessing and questioning what is the source of this witnessing. And through that process, not as an intellectual process, but as an actual intentional movement of the focus of your consciousness, mm-hmm. To move through that. I think that's one of the probably the most immediate ways of doing it, mm-hmm. but it's kind of sophisticated. I think it's in my experience, most people need to sort of really learn how to meditate first, understand and experience what the witness is, and then understand how it is possible that you can focus your attention in a very deliberate way to achieve certain outcomes in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because in a business context, people use the word leader a lot, mm-hmm. and yet in speaking to someone like you, the word master or creator comes to my mind in regard to what further there is to open to. Yeah.